In this panel, we're going to do what politicians or doctors would always advise against, which is the vision thing. And I am delighted that we have with us some distinguished MEPs who are going to share with us, I hope, their visions of health in this new EU political cycle that is just beginning, and what they think is crucial to address if we are to realise their visions of the future. So let me bring them up. I'm delighted to welcome Stine Bosse from Renew Europe. She is Vice Chair of the European Parliament's Subcommittee on Public Health and a member of the Environment, Public Health and Food Safety Committee. I think for the moment we are still missing Nicolás González Casares from the S&D group, but I hope he will be with us very shortly. Also delighted to welcome Ignazio Marino, Vice Chair of the Greens and a member of the Budgets and Environment, Public Health and Food Safety Committees and the Subcommittee on Public Health, and Tomislav Sokol from the EPP, who is a member of the Internal Market and Consumer Protection Committee and a passionate campaigner on issues. As with our last session, this will be a totally interactive discussion. I have some questions for our panel, and then I will come amongst you either with the mic or take your questions in writing. Could I please urge you, if your question is in writing, could we keep it short? I had some 4 or 5 paragraph questions in the first session, and it's very difficult for me to see at a glance who your question is for and what you want to know. So brevity, please, if we could. Let us dive straight in, Stine. And we've heard, as I said, we talked about what we would imagine and how we imagine that healthier, more competitive Europe. And then we began to talk about what we need to do to realise it. But in terms of the vision, what is your vision of a future European healthcare sector that really can be innovative, can compete and can thrive against the backdrop of very considerable challenges and thus deliver for patients? What's the vision first?
Allow me to start in an area where you would probably not imagine that I would start. But I listened very carefully to what the Commissioner Sarafin from Poland said. He is going to be responsible for the new MFF, and he said the following: everything that we can do better, cheaper, together, we have to do. And that is, for me, crucial also in this area. So in all the areas where we can actually make a difference for citizens in Europe by working closer together, cross-border, not talking about changing any patterns of decisions or anything, but making sure that we have the right motorways, that we facilitate working together, is definitely what I want to see. I want to see that every citizen in Europe has better access, has a kind of healthcare system that actually solves healthcare issues. And for me, there is no contradiction in what I'm now saying. The cornerstone in this will be to make sure that we have a strong, healthy, also competitive life science sector where we actually stand as global leaders. We have a position today that we should be caring for, but we need also to develop that further. And some of the pathways is to be bold on some of the areas where we know that the new cutting edge is, and that will demand a lot from working together with public sector, private sector, with less restrictions and with one perspective to make the healthcare systems in all of Europe stronger.
Thank you very much, and I'll come back on where we need to be boldest. What are the biggest, the toughest nuts to crack, if I may use an English expression, a little bit later on. But let's continue to build our visions of the future. And Ignazio, from your point of view, what is the vision?
Well, I have to admit that I'm really concerned about the fact that having worked for many, many years in the United States, there was one thing that I always been very, very proud to tell to the physicians and nurses in that continent. And the thing that I was saying was that, we can spend here in an important academic medical center $1 million to treat one patient, but if you look at the life expectancy in Europe, the life expectancy is much higher with much less money invested in healthcare. You know, the money that Europe invests, you know, as a whole is probably 50% of the GDP of the different countries. In the United States, it's getting close to 18–19% of the GDP, and the outcome is very different. However, I'm not so sure that I can make the same statement and express joy about the system in Europe, because now we are becoming more and more, you know, a private. The private sector in healthcare is becoming more and more important, and this is really creating significant difficulties for people that does not have money in the access to care. So I think universal access is extremely important. The second thing is the differences that there are in access to different drugs in different European countries. There are countries where the access to particularly expensive drug, you know, like obviously being an expert in liver, I'm thinking about the sofosbuvir as a very innovative drug for hepatitis C, and you know, because of its cost, is available in some of European countries and less available in other European countries. And the third is that we should not we should try in the Parliament, in the Commission, to have really a reality check. I mean, we have listened to the Draghi's report, and but come on, think about what happened in 2020 in Europe and what happened in United States. You know, at that time, the president was the same president-elect that the United States will have now, and he launched what he called the Operation Warp Speed. Yeah. And even the name, you know, warp is the speed, warp 3 is 27 times the speed of light of Star Trek. So, you know, even the, the communication to the public was very effective. And what he did, he put 20 billion to 6 drug companies to develop a vaccine as quickly as possible. This is not possible in Europe. So how could we compete?
Okay, we'll come back on how we can meet that challenge in a moment. Tomislav, I'd like to welcome Nicolás González Casares from the S&D Group, and he's a member of the Industry, Research and Energy Committee. We are talking at the moment, Nicolás, about vision. The vision of the future, and then we'll talk about how to get there. But Tomislav, a thought from you in terms of your vision, and do you share what we've already heard, and where for you does the focus need to be as we embark on this new 5-year cycle?
Yeah, so thank you for your question. I mean, we heard different visions, so it's impossible to say I agree with both of them. So what I think is important is that access and innovation and competitiveness are not in opposition. I think that's the most important message, because without innovation, without also having production in Europe, at least big percentage of it, without being less dependent on the others, and we see that in the global geopolitical situation that this is very important, and things are becoming more and more uncertain. It's important that also we bring as much investments, clinical trials, innovation, production to Europe. But without innovation, without development of new medicines, there can be no access. Of course, we have problems in both areas. So when we speak about innovation, generally our our share in global innovation, in patents, in commercialization of new medicines, you name it, is definitely getting smaller and smaller. So the US is, we are lagging more behind the US, and China is picking up pace. So China is getting closer to us, and the US further away. So that's a problem, and if we do not find a way to compete with the others, we'll just get eaten in the global situation, this global fight that exists now. When we speak about access, obviously it's also true. So if you look at new oncological medicines approved between 2019 and 2022 by the EMA and the European Commission, out of 48 new oncological drugs, 46 were available in 2023 in the biggest member state, and only 3 in Lithuania. So this is also something that needs to be changed. So definitely EU can do a lot by stimulating innovation on one side, but also doing what we can do also to make access more equitable. Of course, so we have the pharmaceutical legislation that I was working on in the previous mandate. I will continue to work in this mandate as well, but also we are expecting now Critical Medicines Act, etc. What is also important to note is I always like to speak of the things that we can do, not just a wish list. And some things like universal access in terms of prescribing one common set of health insurance entitlements, so what treatments are covered or not, that is and will remain a national competence. So here our possibilities are limited. What we can do is make it easier for medicines to get to the market faster, to make it easier for pricing and reimbursement decisions to be faster than they are now, that national decisions are made in a faster way. To also make, I think we can also make national procedures more transparent. Okay. So we have the Transparency Directive, which has not been amended for 35 years. So a lot of things that we can do on European level in terms of supporting national policies, but also creating conditions that medicines get to the patients faster than they are now, even though in the end the final decisions will be made by member states based on their national priorities.
Okay, and we'll come back on many of those issues, I hope, in our discussion. But Nicolás, a very warm welcome. And in terms of your vision of a health sector, we have the title of today's event, Imagine a Healthier, More Competitive Europe. What do you see as what should our vision be, and where do you hope we'll be 5 years from now?
First, my apologies for being late. I was coming from Paris from another event. I would like to say first, in reaction to what Tomislav has said, that I cannot resign to universal health coverage, not depending the level of policies you are. I mean, I'm an European politician, European policymaker. I won't resign to universal health coverage in every field, even in the pharma field. We have to push from here to the member states in order to get the best access for the patient, no matter where they live, no matter the income they have. I think this is very important because remember Becca, the beating cancer experience, said us that there are a lot of difference depending whether you live in Europe, the region, the country, the member state, or even your social conditions. So first, we will, from my side and from the side of my political group, we will always defend universal health coverage and equal access to treatments to all the people. Regarding my political vision about the science and the development of new medicines and the health systems and so on, first we have to say that science is being attacked from different sides of the policies and from the partisan attacks. I can remember pandemic. You mentioned Trump, the Trump administration. Trump said that it was Bolsonaro, but the same political family, that if you drink bleach, you could defeat COVID.
No, he did say so.
People
invited him to do that.
So first, respect the science. Science-based decisions are the best ones, and the only thing that can help people is science in reality. So please don't trust in those politicians that say that science is not important or they don't believe in science. Maybe climate change, maybe medicines, maybe vaccines. Please, please believe on science. And secondly, regarding the pharmaceutical perspective at the EU, of course we have to build our own resilience. We are working now in the pharma package. I think that it's time to think how to close this package into the next year, not beyond. Next year should be the objective of close this legislation, and also how to build this resilience and research and development in Europe. Of course, we have to be better prepared for the future with more autonomous production, but thinking that these supply chains, this world is totally, fully connected. So we cannot forget.
Okay.
We have to build our own power, of industrial power. And last but not least, think about this One Health approach. Not only One Health, the planetary health approach. What is happening in the world affects us and the way the diseases come to Europe. For example, now, in this moment, we really don't know what is sadly happening in Congo that can affect us maybe in weeks.
Indeed, it is all interconnected. Just in terms of where we've come from and where we're going in the immediate future, I just wondered, and Tomislav, maybe come to you first, in terms of what impact do you think the raft of initiatives we've seen, you talked about the pharma package, you've all talked about we need to get this done, you've been very closely involved. We've also seen a number of other initiatives. What impact have they had in terms of building a European Health Union? Can we begin to talk about one? And when you look at the planned initiatives for the first 100 days and beyond of this new commission, whole raft of things, the Biotech Act, the new bioeconomy strategy, the Critical Medicines Act has already been mentioned, the Life Sciences strategy, and indeed earlier we talked about the economic security strategy as well. What impact has what we've done so far had in realising your vision, and how do you see this whole raft of initiatives? Do you think they will put us on the right track?
Yeah, I think before 2019, healthcare was a marginal topic in Brussels. So let's be perfectly clear on that. The main excuse was it's a national competence, we cannot do anything, etc., which is not true. We can do a lot if there is political will to do it. Not everything. So we cannot guarantee that this treatment will be, the same treatment will be covered exactly in all the member states, but for instance, on equal access to medicines, in getting them on the market faster, making the procedures easier and faster, we can do a lot. So things have changed. I think COVID was the crucial, obviously, game changer. Also, Europe's Beating Cancer Plan, which I think also was, as a first strategy, systematic strategy which covers all the phases of beating cancer, from research, early detection, prevention, to afterlife of cancer survivors, and now with all the legislation. I think health data space, to be perfectly honest, I'm not saying that because I was the rapporteur on that, but I think this is the biggest change, because it's really creating something new. And if we get it right with the implementation of European health data space, we'll be able to use by a factor of 10 or 20 or 30 times more data for research, for innovation, for development of new medical technologies, of new medical devices, for new policy decisions. We'll be able to use it. In terms of pharma legislation, I think it's very important. I think the Commission tried to resolve the problem of access there, because they knew that they couldn't do it through Transparency Directive and Cross-Border Directive, revision of these directives, because there is a big opposition on the member states. So they tried to squeeze in the question of access in pharma legislation, which was actually not made originally for that purpose. And here is why a lot of differences came to the fore. But I think that what we got in the first reading of the Parliament, the balance that we struck between making it possible that when there is a need for a medicine in a member state, a member state makes a request to the company, and the company has to provide it within a certain time period. On one side, but also protecting the guarantee, the exclusivity, the incentives for development of new medicines, that we were able to strike the right balance. So I think that the effects were there, but I think what we have to develop more is a true systematic vision which covers all of these things together.
Yeah, thank you, which is very much echoing what has been said earlier. Stine, you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, I just wanted to also perhaps give my answer to your question. I'm not sure that we've done ourselves a great favor. I think there are areas where we really need to rethink, and I do agree, of course, that this area was not dealt with at all. So yes, there is some kind of progress, but if you see the conflicting areas of new legislation where we have left our industry in, confusion, one. Second, we have not taken into account the fact that we are in a world where competition is global. And we need to really think that through in a different way. And thirdly, if we really want to make sure that we get this access issue, and I think we can all agree that that is a very, very important topic for all of us, then we really have to sit down and think differently. And here's where out of the box comes into play. And also, of course, here engage with industry and say, you know, have you got any ideas? Have you got any things that we can take into account when we deal with this? Because I have not heard from any of the industry representatives that they don't see this as an issue, because they know well, of course, that we're politicians. And when we are going to get this through the parliament, we have to have and bear in mind that this is a very important topic. So for me, we really need to deal with all this in a different way and also look at the different pieces of legislation. Think about AI. Is that in conflict with some of the other pieces of legislation? Oh, yes, it is. So let's solve it.
And I want to come back later, because one of the things EFPIA has suggested as a way to tackle this is having an EU Office of Life Sciences that precisely tries to deliver that joined-up thinking. But I lose count, Ignazio, of the number of times I moderate discussions where we talk about more coordination, more coherence, less contradictory legislation. It is a never-ending conversation that never seems to be resolved. For you, what is your sense of where we are now after this whole raft of initiatives? Do you share Stine's concern? And what do you think the new raft of initiatives should address?
Well, I want to go back to what Nicolás was saying. I was not trying to be the attorney of Mr. Trump, obviously. I was trying to highlight the difference between the two continents, and the difference in rules and regulation. And we have a responsibility to write and implement the future rules and regulation in our continent if we want to be really competitive with USA, China, India, and now, you know, the Arab countries that are entering in this important competition. And obviously, if you have the power of injecting 20 billion in a couple of months in the industry, you know, the competition with the drug companies in Europe becomes really unfair, because, you know, they cannot get...
But you also said it's not just about money. It's about, because you said you get different...
It's also about regulation, and there is a big issue now in front of us, which is the intellectual property. You know, if from one side you have one competitor that can have a significant larger amount of money and a longer period of intellectual property, and here you have another competitor that have much less money and much less length of intellectual property, how can they compete? You know, they will not be able to compete, and a lot of people will move their investments in a place where the competition is, you know, favorable.
But in terms of what you think this whole raft of new initiatives needs to address, where would you be putting the focus?
I think we need to rethink, you know, about if we want our industry, and our industry is so important to our continent, to be competitive with the other continents and the other superpowers. Well, we need to think about which kind of tools, legislative tools, we will implement in order to make them competitive. And I think the length of the intellectual property is a big issue.
Is a key issue. But in broad terms, music to the ears of some of our audience, in broad terms, do you think our approach is right, or we need, and I want to ask you the same question, we heard a plea from Hans Kluge in the last session for new and bold approaches.
Absolutely right in the sense that we try to have the same cost of, I mean, we try, we're not there yet, the same cost for all the drugs in the entire continent, and obviously this is very important, but you know, there is a big disadvantage in the access to public money. If you think about the money that more or less will be dedicated to research in the area of drugs in our continent between 2021 and 2027, you know, with the program Horizon is probably going to be in this selected area about 13, 14 billions. The NIH put 39 billions only in year 2021. You know, the difference is so huge that is very difficult to compete.
So you are saying that the companies are not investing in research and development in Europe, but these companies want more and more length of incentives. Are we saying that? Because I think research and development should be a compromise between public and private. We should not forget that. Because you're saying public is putting less money, but we want more time of incentives. Okay, but this is fair. My question is it fair? We need fair competition, of course. But when we give more than 7, 8, 9 years to a medicine, we are giving these 9 years to a medicine also produced in China, not only in Europe. Okay. So I want a compromise from the industry to also have research and innovation and invest in private research and innovation.
Okay, I know this is a really important issue. We can't spend too long on it. No, absolutely.
No, but I can see that you are not liking what I'm saying.
Not at all. No.
Because I don't refer applause.
No.
But in any applause,
it's nothing to do. I'm a moderator. I don't have a view on what you
because
say.
maybe it was uncomfortable to listen to that.
Not at all. I'm glad we're talking about it. Natalie asked us at the beginning to have a frank exchange and a frank exchange. Yeah, I'm just mindful of time and lots I want to ask you.
But I'm also surprised. This is the first time that I heard from the Greens that they want to have longer IP protection and market exclusivity. This is something very new
now
for me.
My question is, TLMS was announced.
Well, I'm not... You know, what I'm saying is that we need to have rules and regulation that make the competition equal.
No, I agree.
I agree.
But excuse me, if I may finish, if it's not a problem. Okay, thank you. From our side on the legislation, I was speaking before. I was speaking about health legislation, where I think we've done quite a lot. Not everything is ideal, as I said, with the Commission's approach to try to fix all the problems of access in pharma legislation. It's not really working, but I think we were able to mend that. But if you speak about the whole corpus of legislation that we adopted on environment, on corporate sustainability, due diligence, on many things, on reporting, different types of reporting, we added layers and layers and layers of additional conditions, requirements, and burdens on our industry, which definitely makes us much less competitive than the others. And so in general terms, I think this legislative period should be about actually seeing what of these things is necessary, where we have overlaps, where things are just creating bottlenecks, like we have with medical devices regulation, where we now have problems that new medical devices cannot be certified in time. So adding all of this bureaucracy on top, definitely in total, was not the best approach. So I think that now in this new mandate, and I'm pretty positive after hearing the new commission in the hearing, that he'll be susceptible to this kind of more competitiveness approach. Also, I'm glad that the S&D supports that we add additional, for instance, years of market exclusivity, for instance, if the companies invest in Europe, because this is something that I was proposing as well. So if you're investing in Europe...
No, we proposed that, not the EPP. We proposed that, and you didn't support us.
But you didn't support this as well. But I'm glad that you're supporting it now. But I think so. When we speak,
I hope the Council will solve.
But when we speak about the industry, I think the idea of modulation of incentives is not bad. But I think for certainty, for being able to make business plans in advance, etc., that we need to have the guarantee that is the baseline. This is why we protected that the baseline stays as it is, not to prolong it, not to have it longer, but to protect it on the level that we have now in the legislation. Because if we are saying we want to compete with the Americans, and we are reducing the baseline, which definitely directly affects what the companies will invest for, then definitely we are not contributing to competitiveness. You also have to be clear about that.
Okay,
So
I just want to see, hang on. I just want to see if there are any questions from our audience. Can we bring the lights up slightly, please, just so I can see?
How will I say something to Nicolás?
Hang on a second, let me just, you can react in a moment, but I want to come out into the room and bring our audience into the conversation. Could you please stand up, introduce yourself, and please be as brief as you can.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm Katalin Saloki from Hungary, from the Hungarian Pharma Association. I would like to ask you, gentlemen, what do you think about the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive that was also approved by the new parliament as well in the corrigendum, which actually contributed very much to hinder our competitiveness in the pharma industry as well.
Okay.
So
can you link it to the pharma industry?
No, this is an I question.
One thing. The other thing is, you've mentioned, two of you, the Europe Beating Cancer Plan. None of you have mentioned that a week ago, Europe has adopted the Cardiovascular Action Plan. Cardiovascular diseases being the first and foremost cause of mortality here in Europe. So how do you see the European Parliament's role in making this
Thank you, Catherine.
available?
Thank you. And of course, talk of many of plans in several areas, and you mentioned the Beating Cancer Plan earlier. Hang on. You mentioned the Beating Cancer Plan earlier, how you see that translating to these others. Let me just see if there are any more questions, and then I will come back. Hang on a second. Hang on. Hang on, dear me.
It's a very interesting question.
Okay, who are you pointing at? I can't see a hand. Wave. Up here, there we go. Here I am, there we go. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. My name's Sebastian. I actually launched a new initiative called Capital for Cures at the beginning of the year, where we really want to change that. And that is really what's also in the Draghi plan is pension funds. Because that is a huge issue where Europe can be more competitive. Pension funds don't invest enough in venture capital. And that's something I would really like your support on, is they should invest more in European companies, create the next big players, and really get competitive there. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I'll squeeze one more in if there is one. Nicolás, you were dying to answer on that one. Please.
I have to say one thing regarding the wastewater treatment directive. It's important to mention that. We voted in this, the final vote was during this term. You were right, the final vote. But not in any single part of the process, the industry came to us to say that they didn't want this water waste treatment directive because the pharma issue. No one. Only the last moment before vote, the day before vote, they came to us and say, this is a mess. Of course, this is a mess, but we already voted 3 times this. So this is...
Hang on, no, I'm sorry.
Sorry. No,
Okay.
It's completely true from my side. And I can assure you that this happened, as I'm telling you, because it was, I have this request 2 days before the vote.
I'm really sorry, but we are going to have to move on because we've got a lot of ground to discover and we can't get into specific arguments about one piece of legislation. It's not because I want to shut you down, it's because of time. But thank you, Tomislav.
Thank you. Yes, on wastewater, I wasn't working on that particular file. I was more focused on health legislation, but from what I heard after the elections in the last 2 or 3 months, I'm open to see what can be changed, because I think this is also part of this whole adding layers on top. On the cardiovascular, EPP was the one who put it as their political priority. What we have now, it's not a real strategy. The overarching strategy will come, be made and developed by the Commission, but this is something that we put as our political priority, the most important thing. And on scaling up, I absolutely agree. That's one of the main reasons why we are lagging behind the US.
Thank you. Stine, there was also a written question about the cardiovascular plan saying, will it have the same impact as the Beating Cancer Plan? But as I say, there's not only that one, there are others in the pipeline as well. The new health commissioner has been asked to develop them in several areas. What can we learn from the Beating Cancer Plan to make sure these plans actually deliver?
First of all, I think we need to get back with our feet on the ground and make sure that what we do as politicians is actually facilitating that what happens in the countries actually can happen at a higher speed, at a higher quality level, and together. So for me, this is going to be, for all the areas that we can think of, we need to invest in where we can do more together. That's why rare diseases for me is an obvious place to start, because this is an area where we cannot make a difference country by country. It might be contradictory to what you want to do, but I want to make sure, okay, good.
Definitely
I want to
not.
make sure that in all areas where we can see we can do more together better and often at a lower price, that is where we're going. And that will fuel beating cancer plan, it will fuel also the vascular diseases, and in all these areas we have to do more together. And that comes into price. What is going to be the pressure on all healthcare systems in Europe is going to be, can we afford it? And that is back to the investment side, and I think it was a brilliant question. How do we make sure that there is the needed access to capital? This needs to be also part of our agenda to make sure that we work together, of course, with colleagues in econ and other areas to make sure that this happens. Because otherwise, we will not be able to get our competitiveness up and running.
So what used to be called the Capital Markets Union
Yes.
now has been rebranded under the new
that's
commission. Is
fair.
crucial. Ignacio, you wanted to come in on this point, then I'll come to you, Nicolás.
I want to share some concern with Nicolás and Tomislav because, just to express my view, I think that there are, there are different kind of research and development, and there is some research, mainly basic science research, that is so important to develop new molecules that I believe it is going to be difficult that will happen without significant public investment. And the other thing that is concerning me, and I don't know if the regulation, rules and regulation we have in Europe right now can really help in this sector, is the fact that more and more the industry is looking at molecules that are developed by scientists that receive grants from public money, and then they buy the intellectual property, and then they bring that to life with different phase 1, 2, and 3 trials that the public sector didn't do. And I'm not sure that with the rules and regulation that we have right now, we have something in place that can, from one side, protect the public investment, from the other side, has to the industry to do their part, because obviously the industry needs to do their part, and they need to reinvest a significant portion of their profit in new research.
Nicolás.
Therefore, how can we find out that this is already happening or really happening? With transparency, with a clear transparency of what is really investing every company in private or also in public, mainly the public money, because we are giving to Horizon Europe, to different universities, this public previous aid, but then we buy also with public money the medicine, so we are putting
Correct.
a lot of money at the same time. One thing was mentioned, the cardiovascular plan. I'm very happy that we have this possibility of the new cardiovascular plan on this term. I worked in the BECA. I also asked also for this cardiovascular plan for Europe because it's the first cause of death, and are also linked regarding prevention, the lifestyle, the prevention of small alcohol consumption, the food are very important. So there are things that are in common, and part of the work that we made during the BECA report can be transferred to this cardiovascular health strategy. For example, tobacco prevention. We have to speak about tobacco prevention. This is a pharma debate, but of course, tobacco is very important, and how to prevent or also how to reduce the use of tobacco with new medicines can be talked in this.
Tomislav, you want to come back
on
in?
strategy. So for us, obviously the first priority was the cardiovascular strategy. We put this also in our electoral program because it is the #1 killer in Europe. And the second two priorities that we also mentioned in the documents after that, that we proposed is the similar strategy for brain health and also for rare diseases. And I think particularly in rare diseases, the EU can make the biggest difference, because here we have cases that patients in many member states just cannot get adequate treatment because too small numbers, lack of experts, infrastructure, etc. So here we can do a lot. I think by one of the things that I will be fighting for strongly this minute is also to change the rules on cross-border healthcare, because they are not working. They are extremely complicated. They are extremely unknown to the patients, and definitely I think here we can do a lot. But here then we need to invest also more in European reference networks. We need to simplify the procedures and all of the things that are required there. We have to invest into national centers of excellence that can cover several regions in different member states. But here you can provide the biggest added value, because it can solve problems that member states, especially smaller ones, cannot solve by themselves. And I think here this is something that is extremely important. But when we speak of strategies, with strategies, what we need is clear objectives, clear benchmarks, and clear funding. And the main fight in this mandate will be to retain healthcare as a focus, as a priority, and this will be seen in the area of funding. We already lost 1 billion euros from you for health program, and the biggest fight will be for the budget, so that we have enough funding for health, that we keep this momentum going. So this will be the most important thing that we as politicians will have to fight for, to retain this focus on healthcare.
Do you share the concern that health in this 5-year cycle is going to, Stine, you want to come in, partly because of other pressing priorities in the geopolitical situation, but seems to be dropping down the agenda?
I think it was very depressing when our mandate started. There were people saying, I think it was referred into Politico, well, health is not really a priority anymore. Like COVID has gone away and this is it. That is really not paying attention to what is worrying our citizens. So we need to be very clear on that. And I think that was on the negative side. On the positive side is now that the Sant Committee is becoming its own committee. That is a signal of still a high priority, at least from
you within the
Parliament
are putting
exactly.
it.
And we should keep it like that. And I completely agree on the fact that this is, at the end of the day, it boils down to investing. It boils down to investing in the ERN system and to other areas where we can really make a difference together. That was my point earlier. And that is going to be a success factor for all of us, I think, that in all the areas where we can do more together, we need to invest.
Nicolás, you wanted to react, I think, on this point about whether health is slipping down the agenda, and then Ignazio.
It depends on a very high political issue. If the health policy in Europe, the health policy of the European Commission relies on the actual commissioner, I think the health is getting down. But it's, in fact, instead that is really remaining in the president of the commission, will be on top. We will see this in the coming days. We are seeing, for example, HERA, that is growing right now with more people engaged to HERA, working on that. It's not relied directly on Barelli, but yes, the message was not good from the president of the commission, giving Barelli the issue on health.
Thank you. I know you want to come in, but Ignazio first.
I think, obviously I did, I'm new in the parliament, so I did not participate to the work of the previous 5 years. And I know, so you will hear something, again, different from a green, or at least somebody belonging to a green.
A good green.
Well, I'm an independent thinker.
That's good.
It's something fresh, definitely, so it's a good thing.
But anyhow, when I heard that the Greens were not happy about, having a full committee for the healthcare, I actually discussed this inside of my group, and I think this is a step forward, because the lesson that we learned with the COVID is a lesson that we should not forget easily. And what worked in our continent was working together with all the 27 countries in the European Union. Absolutely. So and you need to take my words with, some prudence, because I always see the glass half full. But I really do think that, the steps that we are taking, evolving from a subcommittee to a full committee, is a good step, because health may be less important to the different government, but is extremely important to 450 million people living in the continent.
But I'm also wondering, given the increased emphasis on competitiveness, the link that we are making today between these two issues is a link that maybe convinces people this matters more than they might think. Thomas, a really brief one, because I want to put you all on the spot.
But I mean, this is a great event, because I hear so many new things. This is incredible. So the Greens support having Socialists support having a separate health committee. It's great. No, this is really great. Yes, on competitiveness, I think Draghi's report really is also very important, because it specifically mentions health as one of the strategic sectors where EU can compete, because we cannot compete in all areas. We cannot compete with high labor-intensive sectors, with cheap labor, etc. So we have to compete with high added value sectors, with high technology, where we actually have the experts, where we have the know-how, where we can compete. And I think by earmarking healthcare as one of the sectors really shows us the way that this is where we have to really concentrate, we have to focus, which means, again, stimulating investment, stimulating research innovation from both public and private sectors. And one last thing on this note. So we speak about the big accomplishment in this minute was actually that healthcare became one of the priorities in the horizon, and specifically beating cancer, one of the priority missions. So when we speak about public investment into health research, we really also did something.
So watch this space.
Well, Tomislav, I will give you something to fight.
You're going to have to be very brief, I'm sorry.
I will give something to
If you really
Greens.
do believe in science, why your party support the amendments about smoke-free environment?
Okay, listen.
We're saying that there is no scientific evidence
No system
that
advice.
smoke and vaping is bad.
Hang on, very good
No,
question.
otherwise we don't fight.
Just to answer this. So the question was whether vaping endangers people who are standing outside. So that was the question.
Okay.
WHO doesn't say that.
Okay.
But
very briefly, Nicolás.
And we said that there is no proof of that. So if you use electronic
Hang on.
cigarette, that you will endanger health of somebody outside.
Hang
So
on. Goodness me.
You see, we start with the fight now.
regarding pharma production, boosting development on new autonomy, and looking and searching for new business, why don't we think in the new markets that we can open regarding Mercosur and the agreement with Latin America? It's a big opportunity also for our pharma industries, because we can manage to give them some standards, European standards, if we buy something from that, for example, meat, beef. But the One Health approach is also a good approach for Europe. We can manage to export our standards, but also to export our medicines to them. We have to create a new relationship with Latin America, and we have opportunities there with Mercosur. Please don't close the door to Mercosur. That is an opportunity for European business.
I wish we had another hour to continue this conversation. So many issues you're all raising, I want to raise with you, but we don't. We are almost out of time. So I want to do the mean thing. And I'm not going to ask you for one priority for action, because I think what we've heard very much today all day is how multifaceted this is, how it's about ecosystems, it's about all of the issues we've been discussing. So instead of that, and in 30 seconds each, Nicolás, a key next step. If we're to deliver on your vision of the future, what's the first thing we need to do at the start of this political cycle? Same question to you all.
First, we have to close the pharma package in the next year. And also, important advertisement. We have worked in the platform, European shortage monitoring platform.
It's a monitoring
that
platform
was
for
made
shortages.
during the past term, so we did a lot of things.
There was a question here about critical medicines.
Because we didn't speak too much about shortages.
No, we didn't, and there was a question. We're just running out of time because you're all having such a good time debating with each other, which I love. Tomislav.
Finished pharma package, I agree, plus Critical Medicines Act.
Thank you. Ignazio.
I think we need to work together, all the 27 countries, to have a very equal system in the distribution of the important drugs.
Stine.
First of all, let's fix what was a bit of a mistake. And second, let's invest in, for example, the ERN and many other areas where we can do much more together.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being brilliant debaters. I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much to all of you.
That's fun.
These discussions, as they say, will run and run. Please, thank you.